Hey you guys, welcome back to Rocket City Yardstead. As you can see, we are out here in the garden today. It is gorgeous. It's sunny. It's 70 degrees. That is about to end. Tonight we have storms rolling in. It's supposed to rain tomorrow. And then our temperature is just shifting massively. We're going to be significantly cooler. And then we have lows in the 30s this week. We actually have a low that says it's going to be 30. So all of these warm weather loving plants, they're going to die. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm kind of ready for it. When these die, the ragweed's going to die, and hopefully my seasonal allergies are going to call it quits. But I need to pick all of the tomatoes and peppers and eggplants that have grown on these plants in the last month since we did a big pick of the garden together. I'm not going to drag you guys along for that because we did this together a month ago, but I will show you once I get back inside what all I got. And then once I am inside, one of the things I need to do today, and I'm very excited about it, is I found a cornbread recipe that I really want to try. If you happen to be new around here, I am incredibly sensitive to corn. I found this out maybe like 5 years ago. It might be longer than that, but I miss cornbread. And one of our favorite recipes for Thanksgiving is a cornbread stuffing that's got yellow squash and onions, and oh, it's just delicious. But we can't have it because I can't have cornbread. And I don't tolerate nuts well. Most of the cornbread recipes that are not corn call for almond meal. So I've never really been able to make any of those. And this year I managed to find a recipe that doesn't contain any nut flours. So I'm very excited to try this out. I'm going to get to picking and I will bring you guys back and show you what all I managed to get out of this garden once I'm done. Good morning, you guys. So it is the next day because my garden harvest ended up being pretty significantly larger than I anticipated. It took me a lot longer to harvest, which is a fantastic problem to have. And so I just never got around to making my faux cornbread. So it's the next day and we're going to make that this morning. But first, I need some tea. We can get to making our faux cornbread now, you guys. So this is very interesting to me. It is a vegan, not cornbread. And the main two ingredients are chickpea flour and canned pumpkin. I am very curious to see how this turns out. I'm very excited about the prospect of something that mimics cornbread. The author of the recipe talks about how the flavor profile of the chickpea flour is very reminiscent of corn. And so we're just going to find out how this works. It calls for 200 grams of chickpea flour. So I am going to get that in here. And I have to tell you guys, I was really shocked when I went looking to see where I could find chickpea flour. The Walmart that is literally minutes from my home has chickpea flour in the baking section. I don't know if that is a normal thing that Walmarts carry or maybe just because of the community I live in, but who knew? I certainly didn't. I had to go looking. I thought I was going to have to go to a specialty store or, like an ethnic grocery or get on Amazon or something. So that I could just go to Walmart and buy this was pretty amazing. Got our chickpea flour in here. Now we need 10 grams of baking powder. Also need a gram of cumin. This is a ingredient that seems a little bit odd to me, but maybe it adds something flavor-wise. I don't know. We're gonna add it. If I like the recipe overall, but I don't like this flavor, I can always remove it in future. And then we need 3 grams of salt. Trusty Danish dough whisk here. Now that these ingredients are all mixed up, we're going to add our canned pumpkin. And we need 123 grams of pumpkin puree. This recipe also has a link to a recipe for making stuffing out of this that's more of a traditional stuffing recipe. And so if we like it, I'm thinking I may turn it into that. Okay, now I'm going to switch out my scale, which probably seems kind of crazy, but I learned recently that my kitchen scale I normally use does not do small amounts well. Like that one will actually measure a gram for me, and this one will not. It doesn't start registering until about 10 grams. But the rest of my ingredients call for milliliters, and that scale does not do milliliters. It's a little inconvenient, but it's not the end of the world. So the next thing we need is 60 milliliters of vegetable oil. I'm using avocado oil. And then we need 123, no, where is it? 296 grams of a non-dairy milk. I am using almond milk. I can't eat almonds, they bother my joints, but for some reason, almond milk does not do the same thing. I'm guessing it must be something that's in the pulp of the almonds that gets strained out when they make the milk. But it's why this recipe was so interesting to me, because most corn-free cornbreads call for almond meal. And our final ingredient is 15 milliliters of maple syrup. And now we just mix it all together. I think that this pumpkin is probably going to be the element that makes this sort of cornbread looking, because the graham flour is very off-white, I would say. I actually think this is going to end up more orange than a traditional cornbread, but if it tastes good, who cares? We'll get the bowl scraped down here really good and make sure we've got everything nice and incorporated. It does look remarkably like the consistency of a cornbread batter to me. The color is definitely a little bit oranger, but I'm going to give you a peek here. I think it looks really similar, actually. I'm going to get my baking dish all sprayed up here. And then get our cornbread batter into the baking dish. If I haven't mentioned it yet, the oven is preheated to 350 degrees. I will definitely link the recipe below though, so you can get it from the author's website. I can't remember the name of the website off the top of my head, but the author's name is Camilla. Get this all spread out. Now it's ready to go in the oven. It says it should bake for 28 to 33 minutes, and just use a toothpick to test it just like you would with a regular bread. So we'll get this in the oven. I will definitely check it at 28 minutes because my oven, I think, tends to run hot. So we'll come back once it's baked and see what it looks like. You guys, the cornbread is done. It's cooled. It looks really nice. It looks nice on the bottom too. It's nice and airy. So let's cut into this and see what it's like. I don't want to cut out too much because I do think I'm going to go ahead and turn it into cornbread stuffing. This is a beautiful texture. It does remind me a lot of cornbread. The taste is the key though, right? Oh my gosh. You guys, this is kind of amazing. It's a little dry. Cornbread's always a little dry feeling in the mouth, but I'm really blown away right now. Granted, I haven't had cornbread in probably 5 years, but it's pretty amazing. I think I would maybe leave the cumin out if I was going to make this just to eat. I think it'll probably be pretty nice in that stuffing. I'm going to take another bite. I was distracted a little by the mess I made. Yeah, this is amazing. So, a total winner here. I'm sorry. I'm sort of at a loss for words. It's just kind of amazing. It's like a way to have a thing I thought I would never have again. And I'm having a moment. Um, so I am going to make the stuffing and I will throw that in here as well. I went ahead and chopped up some celery and onions and mushrooms. I realized I had everything to make this lady's stuffing recipe, except mine will not be a vegan version because I don't have vegetable broth, but I thought we'd give it a go and see how it goes in the stuffing. It's nice and light, and the texture is really on point. I really am just shocked in such a pleasant way. I go into these kind of things with a healthy dose of skepticism because if you make it and then you don't like it, it's always such a disappointment. But wow. I cubed up our faux cornbread and it's been toasting in the oven at 375 for about 15 minutes. So I'm going to set this aside to let it cool. And we're going to get going on the stuffing. So this recipe calls for using oil because it's a vegan recipe. I am going to use butter because not a vegan and we like the taste of butter in our stuffing. So I've got mushrooms, onions, and celery that I chopped up a little while ago. I'm just going to add into this pan. We're going to get these sauteing while our cornbread cools. Our veggies are all nice and sauteed up now, so I am going to add a little bit of sage. Not a ton, it's pretty strong. Our cubed up cornbread. Now we're going to add some parsley and cranberries, dried cranberries that have been roughly chopped. The final thing we need to add here is some broth. The recipe calls for a vegetable broth. I'm using chicken broth because that's what I have. Obviously, if you want this to be vegan, you need to use a vegetable broth. And then it says to gently toss this all together. It looks beautiful. I am very hopeful. Trying to incorporate everything without breaking the pieces of stuffing up too much. I think I think that's incorporated well enough. So now it calls for putting foil on it and baking it. I am just going to go ahead and leave it in my brazier here and use the lid. So it's going to go into the oven at 375 for 30 minutes. Now that the cornbread stuffing is in the oven and baking, I thought it was time to show you guys the final harvest. This was a lot more than I was expecting. I knew there were quite a few tomatoes. I didn't expect quite this many. This big, beautiful box of sweet peppers has some of the most beautiful peppers I've gotten all year. Our bug pressure has been a lot less, even though it hasn't frosted, and so they just are perfect. My biggest eggplant harvest of the year. We'll be very excited to have those. My mom keeps talking about more baba ganoush. The chili peppers put on a nice show here in this last month. And so got a nice amount of Anaheims, a few Poblanos, some Serranos, and what's the other one? Cayennes. There's just a few of the Serranos and Cayennes. It's mostly Anaheims in this basket. And then obviously the giant crate of tomatoes here. Some of them are ripening. So I have ones like this, lots of green ones, and the green ones come in every size imaginable. So I see lots of salsa verde making in my future. We do have ones like this guy that are a good size for canning. I learned last year that you can can slices of green tomatoes and it works really well for making fried green tomatoes later on. So I just need tomatoes that fit down in a wide mouth pint jar. So I'll probably can some of those up. But overall, I'm just exceptionally happy with this final harvest that, as I mentioned before, I kind of think of as bonus food because we thought we were going to get a frost more than a month ago. So yeah, just a real blessing. Anyway, there you have it. So now we'll just wait for our stuffing to come out of the oven. Now that the stuffing has cooked for 30 minutes with the lid on, we'll take the lid off and cook it for another 20 to 25 minutes. Just let the top get nice and crunchy. Here is our stuffing freshly out of the oven. It looks beautiful, so I guess it's time for a taste test. I grabbed a clean fork and we are going to give this a taste test. I just want to get in here and try and get a bite that's got all of the goodies in it. It's so good. I don't know if somebody served this to me and didn't tell me if I would know that it's not cornbread. Now, again, I haven't had cornbread, the real stuff, in like 5 years, but it's just really good. I am going to give my mom a bite and see what she thinks, and I will tell you what she says. But if you're like me and you're missing cornbread stuffing, I think that this is an absolute winner. So definitely, I would give it a try. And I will make sure I link the recipes down in the description box. I took my mom a little bit of the stuffing to try, and she said it was very good. She said the texture was great, the consistency was really good. It doesn't taste exactly like cornbread, but that she really liked it. So if you are still a corn eater like my mom, but you have somebody in your family who's corn free, this might be a great option for you. They won't know the difference, maybe because it's been a long time for them, like it's been a long time for me. But there you go. I can't even begin to tell you how happy I am to have this option to make now. I don't know how many different ways I have queried corn-free cornbread over the years with different search terms and things, trying to find a recipe that didn't include almond meal. So I was so elated to find this recipe, and I'm so happy that it has turned out to be wonderful. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm so glad you were here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.